I'm Cherokee Ronnie and welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be talking about the Harbor Freight 12,000 pound ZXR winch. We're going to be talking about the pros and cons today. There's tons of reviews on YouTube of them using it, pulling their Jeeps, but nobody really talks about the specs and the pros and cons. They just say, yeah, it's a good one. You know, they buy it brand new, they throw it on their Jeep and they say, yeah, look how good this is. But they don't talk about long term, and they don't talk about specs, and they don't talk about the pros and cons. So we're going to do all that today. My dad has been using these winches for years on his flatbed and on his trailers. And he is the person that has abused these winches and made me a believer in them. Now you can get these at Harbor Freight for a pretty decent price, and sometimes you can get coupons and get a heck of a deal on them. But I've seen my dad leave these things out in the rain, winch with them for 5 to 10 minutes, really strain these winches, and nothing has really happened to these winches. So the main features of the ZXR: it's a 12,000 pound winch. It has an auto holding brake. It has a 3-stage planetary gear system. It's a 6 horsepower wound motor. Now this winch has some pretty cool features for a budget winch. It has a tensioner bar which keeps tension on the wire as you're spooling it up and all that good stuff. It also has a 5% duty cycle. What that means is you can winch for 45 seconds, then you have to let it cool down for 14 minutes and 15 seconds. Now, a lot of people will say this is a 12,000 pound winch, which they are correct. Now, where we get into the nitty gritty is a winch is kind of like an onion. It has layers. So we'll just say this winch has 4 layers, which it could have 3 or 4, but it has 65 feet of cable. So we'll just go with, for an example, this winch has 4 layers. The inside layer. Now, if you're using that layer, that is the full 12,000 pound pulling. Now, if we go to the second layer, you're looking around 9,500 pounds pulling. And when you get to the third layer, you're looking at 7,886 pounds pulling. And then when you get to the fourth layer, you're looking at about 6,732 pulling power. And that's what your winch is going to be pulling. It's no longer a 12,000 pound winch. But if you use a snatch block, you can double that and you'll be right at, you know, around 12,000 pounds. So it's always good to have a snatch block. Everybody's like, why didn't you get a 9,000 pound winch? Because this Jeep's light. Yeah, granted, this Jeep is light, but I wanted to go a little bit overkill and get a 12,000 pounds. So if I'm at the second layer, I'll be pulling 9,500 pounds anyway. The best part about this winch that it comes in at 89 pounds. Now a little bit on the heavy side, but it tucks away nice and neat on my bumper. Now, like I said, I've seen this winch, you know, most of my life. My dad's bought them, and he's really abused them. And I've used this winch. I've unspooled it and I respooled it to tighten up the cable. I played around with it. I tried it. It has a really long cord for the handle. It goes way past the Jeep. I'm actually going to get a Bluetooth system so I don't have to have that long cable. But this winch is very reliable, and as much as I'm going to use it for around the farm or pulling myself out or pulling somebody else out, this winch will do great. There's no need for me to go spend $1,200 on a winch when I'm not going to be wheeling every day or anything like that. This winch will do just fine. They're very reliable. There's a lot of good reviews out there, and there's a lot of bad ones. Well, the problem is duty cycle. I've seen people run these winches. They're stuck hardcore in the mud, and they'll run these winches. I mean, they'll get hot, and they'll just burn them up. A winch does have a duty cycle, and you need to follow that. And this Harbor Freight winch also comes with a great manual. It talks about the duty cycle. It talks about how to winch. It shows you everything in the manual. So I recommend reading that if you're new to winches. But a lot of people, I mean, you'll see videos, you'll see people out in the field. I've even known people burning up worn winches. I've seen it. And A lot of people will call me crazy because when I winch, I'll winch for a little bit and then I'll stop. Even with my razor, I run the same winch on my razor, but 2,500 pounds. And I'll winch for a minute and I'll stop and let it cool down because you don't want to overdo it. And you also want your Jeep to catch up. Okay, when you're pulling your Jeep out and you're idling your Jeep, it's going to suck the battery power out. So I have a JScan app where I can plug it in and actually turn my idle up, and that helps a lot winching. But still, you don't want to overdo the winch. So you got to take the duty cycle pretty serious. And this, if you take care of this winch and you do what you're supposed to do with it and follow the instructions, this winch will last you a very long time. Now, a lot of people ask me, do I cover it? There's no need to cover it because it's pretty much water resistant. It's not recommended to go underwater with these, but it's pretty well weatherproofed. If it wasn't, it wouldn't even be worth buying, but it's pretty well weatherproofed. And a lot of people say, why didn't I go with the Apex, the higher version of the Harbor Freight winch? It is a better winch. It comes with a lot cooler stuff, but it's not something that I want to buy. It's not in my price range. This channel is all about being on a budget. So now we got all that stuff out of the way. We're going to be talking about the pros and cons of this winch. This is from my experience compared to other winches and why other winches maybe beat the Harbor Freight winch a little bit. Is this winch, the cons of this winch, it pulls very slow. Okay, it's not a fast pulling winch. So what that gets you is, when you follow the duty cycle instructions, you're going to be there a lot longer. This winch pulls very slow, but that's not a bad thing, because when you're pulling your vehicle out slow or pulling something slow, you can see what's going on and it gives you enough time to react. So I kind of like it, but it kind of don't, because it kind of screws you at the same time. So it's one of those things where it's like, oh well, it is what it is. Another thing with this winch, the cons is, it will drain your battery dry if you constantly pull with it and you don't idle up your vehicle. On my Jeep, if I leave it idling, just regular idling, I can use this winch and it will pull the RPMs down. That's why I use the JScan app to pull the RPMs up. So it's charging the battery and it's pulling the amperage and it's putting the amperage back in. If you have the money and the time and the space, I recommend 2 batteries, but running 1 battery will be just fine. Just use your brain. Now the pros. This winch can pull. This winch can do anything that any other winch can do, and this winch is on a budget. This winch is reliable and it lasts. It does just like everything else. This winch is a great winch. I'm very impressed with them, and I've been using the one on my Razor. I've used it, I abused it, and now I've been using the one on my Jeep, and it's been doing great, and I can't complain. And it's not like I just bought this yesterday and throwed it on and I'm doing a review. I've seen these winches in action. I've seen YouTubers use them, and I've seen YouTubers complain about them. And for the most part, people enjoy them, and the only complaints are they pull slow. So if you were thinking about getting a Harbor Freight winch, don't hesitate. It does great for your first winch or your budget build, or if you're going to be using it around a farm or you're going to be a weekend wheeler. This winch will do the job, and don't be afraid to buy it. Like I said, you can keep an eye out on Harbor Freight. On Harbor Freight's website, you can find coupons. You can get these sometimes super cheap. For some reason, the 9,500 pound winch from Harbor Freight is more sometimes than the 12,000 pounds. So it's smart to just go ahead and buy the 12,000 pound winch, because it's overkill pound wise and it'll help you in the long run. So that's why we chose the 12,000 pound. It's overkill, but it will save you in the long run. So I'm Cherokee Ronnie. Stay dirty, my friends.